We start here. South African scientists are urging calm while they try to figure out a new variant of the COVID-19 virus. Health Minister Thembekile says it's believed to be driving the second wave. Little is known about this new COVID-19 variant, including its might and how it could respond to some of the vaccines developed so far. To talk us through what we need to know, I'm joined by Professor Tulio de Oliveira. He's with the University of UKZN. Professor de Oliveira, you may have seen him in the last 24 hours, was part of that presentation where the announcement of this new variant was made. Prof, very good evening. Thankful for your time as always. So I want us to start with something that was addressed last night by Professor Salim Abdul Karim, the difference between a new strain and a new variant and why it's important to stick to the technical definitions there.
Yeah, thank you, and good evening to all your listeners. Okay, so what happened is that SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19 disease, we have what we call like one virus, that originated in China and spread very far around the world, So what we have a classification of this virus across the world, and we call that a lineage or a variant. So that's the technical term that we use in the scientific community. And it makes much easier to discuss across the world and the scientific community if we use the right terminology. So what we have discovered here in South Africa, and maybe many of your listeners and you may be aware that a similar but distinct lineage has also been discovered in London with exactly the same mutation, or one of the mutations. These two lineages, they have arise independent, one in South Africa, another one in London, and both of them have what you call like changes in the protein. So what it means, it seems that this virus binding better to the receptor in the human lung and can enter better in the cell, which allow much faster transmission between individuals. And what we call that in South Africa, we call the 501.V2 lineage. And in London, they are called the V1 lineage. This means that's two different lineages that are spreading very fast in the population, and both of our government, ourselves, we are worried about that.
And one of the things that is of concern right now is trying to figure out, yes, it appears to be more transmittable, but what you're trying to figure out is, for example, issues around how fatal this new variant could be. And there are doctors who so far said that what they're seeing is younger people who are presenting with more serious symptoms, even though they had no comorbidities. How quickly can we make the determination as far as to why that is?
Okay, that's a very important question, But let me point to you that this question is important, but the most important thing now, it is to try to stop transmission of this variant, Because even if it is caused the same disease severity, at the moment we have no reason to believe that this lineage, it causes more disease severity, but we are studying that. What it means, with more people infected, very soon we're going to run out of beds in our hospitals for ICU patients. And that's the big problem, that when a lineage is more transmissible, we will infect more people. But we have a limited number of hospital beds, especially with support for oxygen or ventilation. And so I think understanding if this causes severity is an extremely important question, and we have the best scientists in the country with support of international science looking at that now. But I think crucial is to try to stop transmission, because we don't want to take time to discover that, and the transmission is so widespread that our health system is getting close to be fully saturated and cannot take more patients.
On transmission then, Prof, let me ask you this. this variant, from what we see from the data presented by yourselves on Friday, is that you've been able to trace it back to parts of the Eastern Cape. It's already been seen, I think, in KZN as well as the Western Cape. But as far as restrictions go, there's not going to be any new introduction of restrictions. And you have to wonder then, in the provinces where it hasn't been detected, at least not officially, would it not be wise to restrict movement between provinces, for example?
I think a very wise thing to us to do today as the whole country, and especially the media, because the media has a very important role on scientific facts, it's see the steps that the government of the United Kingdom is trying to do with London. So today, they're going to put London what they call on level 4 restriction. That's the highest level of restriction. Yeah. And I think that we have to think very serious as a country, especially as citizens, to try to stop going around, stop like mixing with people. We have to try to, especially individually, try to slow down, going around to big shopping centers, having parties, because we really need every single help that we can to try to decrease transmission of COVID-19 in South Africa. As you know, our cases are skyrocketing, and that's another thing that I want to highlight to the public and to you, that we shouldn't be looking at numbers in the next few days, because we know that a lot of our labs are decreasing the number of testing. We should be looking at positivity rate. This means how many tests come positive, and at the moment is around 30%, is extremely high. Bed occupancy in the hospitals, this means how many people is admitted, and excess mortality. But honestly, I think that we have to take much more serious measures to try to stop the transmission of the virus before we can learn about that variant.
And just a final question, as we learn about the variant itself, I know we've got the Moderna vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine, which are currently out. The US, in fact, just in the early hours of this morning, approving emergency use of the Moderna vaccine, right? And what we don't know at this stage with this new variant that we're seeing in South Africa and parts of the UK indeed is whether it will respond differently to the available treatment so far. Is there any way of learning that at this stage before the vaccines are indeed purchased and distributed?
Yes, there is. So our assumption at the time and our knowledge, both of ourselves in South Africa and the UK, it is that the lineages, they are very different lineages. Yeah, they just share some mutations. They would be neutralized by the vaccine. That's what we currently believe. The way to learn that, if that's true, which we think that will be true, it is in two different ways. One, it is to take people that samples, that people that's infected with this new variant, to grow on that on the lab and expose that to neutralizing antibodies, because neutralizing antibodies will be the natural control of the virus by the individuals, but that's what the vaccines will be producing, and see if that neutralizes. The other way to do, and that's where genomics also have a role to play, it is to, once you have breakthrough infections in the vaccines, this means a group, and we have trials of vaccines in the country, a group that's receiving the vaccine and becoming infected with the with SARS-CoV-2, is to sequence the genome of that infection to see if you see that excess of the variant. So far, the vaccines have shown very good efficacy. You may be aware, up to 90–95%. So we are expecting that, but we will be doing that experiment, and not only us, but a lot of the scientific community in South Africa and the international community, because that's a key question to answer. But again, so far, we assume that the vaccine will be effective, as well the measures to stop the virus transmission. But the most important is try to stop this virus to be transmitted, because we have to protect our hospitals and our healthcare workers.
Professor Tulio de Oliveira with the University of KwaZulu-Natal, good to speak to you tonight, sir.